We are broadcasting live.
Good morning, everyone. This is the council meeting for the town of Mono on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. This meeting is being conducted both in chambers and by means of electronic participation as permitted by Section 238, subsection 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and the Town of Mono Procedural Bylaw 2020-42. This meeting can be viewed as it occurs or subsequently on our website. We do have quorum with Councillor Capes joining us remotely. Location of the emergency exits for anyone who doesn't know this are in the rear of the council chamber, and members are free to declare pecuniary interest at this point or at any point in the course of the meeting. And if Councillor Davey could do the land acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Crowman. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territories and ancestral lands of the Chinotante, the Attawandaran, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabes peoples. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connections of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources.
Thank you. I have two proclamations. The first is International Women's Day. Whereas International Women...
Excuse me. Yeah, Your Worship, if we could just approve the agenda of the minutes before we go further.
Apologies.
Thank you.
I have a motion that Council approves the agenda of session 4-2025 as circulated. Councillor Davey moves, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposition? The motion is carried. I have a motion that Councillor approves the minutes of session 3-2025 as circulated. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Magdalo. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I'd like to ask for a correction in the minutes of the last meeting. At the 11-minute and 15-second mark of the meeting as measured on YouTube, I left the meeting and was not here when the question period concerning the Bruce Trail was discussed. I'd like that shown in the minutes, please. And by the way, Your Worship announced that the Deputy Mayor had left the meeting.
I did. Any objection to amending the minutes to reflect the Deputy Mayor's actions? I think he left in anticipation of the issue being raised, and I did point out publicly that that he had left the room for purposes of clarity. And
Deputy Mayor Nix, can you just let me know for the record when you returned from the room, noting that it was virtual, so it wasn't noted?
I'd have to go back and watch the YouTube again.
5 minutes?
I doubt you were gone for more than 5 minutes.
Probably I checked in a couple times to see if you're still talking about it, but I can't remember precise. If you want an accurate number, I will go and watch the video tube again and tell you, okay?
Okay. So mindful that we're going to insert that information into the minutes. Any objection?
So the motion then should read that we adopt the minutes
as amended. Any opposed? Motion is carried.
I'm sorry, Your Worship, I just missed the mover and seconder on that.
I think the Deputy Mayor moved and seconded by Councillor Magdalo. Proclamations, International Women's Day. Whereas International Women's Day is celebrated globally on March 8th by those who believe in gender equality and those who seek to improve the lives of all women and girls, trans and two-spirit and gender peoples through cultural, legal, economic, and social change. And whereas women and girls, in particular women with disabilities, racialized women, immigrant women, two-spirit and gender-diverse peoples experience many forms of oppression, and whereas International Women's Day is a time to work towards a world where each woman and girl can exercise her choice, such as participating in politics, getting an education, having an income, and living in societies free from violence and discrimination. And whereas the town of Mono is committed to promoting equity and justice and will continue to work to address the systemic and structural oppressions that perpetuate inequality. Now, on behalf of Council, I do declare March 8th, 2025 as International Women's Day in the town of Mono. Councillor Capes?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to mention that Family Transition Place hosts an International Women's Day event every year, and that's on Friday, March 7th this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And do you know where the event is being held?
Yes, it's at the Hockley Valley Resort. Tickets are on sale now. If you go to familytransitionplace.ca/events, you'll find the tickets for sale there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second proclamation is Fraud Prevention Month. Whereas Fraud Prevention Month is an opportunity to educate Canadians on fraud detection, reporting and protection, all necessary factors in any effort to deter and prevent fraud. And whereas the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, CAFC, receives fraud reports totaling hundreds of millions of dollars in victim losses each year. And whereas the evolution of fraud, 75% of overall losses reported to the CAFC are cyber-enabled fraud, and this is expected to increase year over year. It is estimated that only 5 to 10% of victims report scams and frauds to the fraud center or law enforcement. And whereas fraudsters create spoofed websites, use spoofed telephone numbers using voice over internet protocol, VoIP, to mimic legitimate numbers, and will have victims download remote entry software providing access to devices and computers, or send out phishing texts with hyperlinks intimidating legitimate businesses or governments offering refunds, rebates, or requiring payments. And whereas the town of Mono is committed to integrity and accountability in its business operations and in its service delivery to the public, on behalf of Council, I do hereby proclaim March 2025 as Fraud Prevention Month in the town of Mono. Elaine?
Thank you again, Your Worship. And I just want to point out something that was sent to us, that in GDP standings, it's the United States, China, and then cyber crime as third, at like $15 billion or something. I can't remember the number, but they sit third as in the largest per capita GDP, so it's bad.
That's interesting.
Perpetrators? What's that mean?
I think it's the dollar value of fraud equals the GDP of.
Oh, how many people get raped?
Yeah, yeah. So it's up there amongst the large nations in terms of its dollar value.
I believe staff sent that to us,
Yeah, thank you.
our amazing tech people.
So that takes us to question period. Fred?
We've got 4 questions that were submitted online in advance, Your Worship. The first question asks or states that false alarms shouldn't be subsidized by taxpayers. Would Council consider an amendment to the false alarm bylaw to charge for false alarms?
I believe we already, and this is a question submitted by Al Thick.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I believe that we do now charge after the third false alarm, so we have some forbearance when it comes to somebody accidentally setting off their alarm, but if it happens more than 3 times, we do in fact charge.
And so our false alarm bylaw says 2 or more false fire alarms to a given property in 12 months, and it has a $3,000 fee.
Potentially. Or how often do we actually invoke it?
Yeah, we don't, not very often. We track them very closely.
Okay.
But it's not that often. I don't have an actual number for how many in the last year that we charged.
Can we get that at some point?
Absolutely.
And I guess there was another issue that arose as to whether that is a calendar year or how that year is calculated.
Yeah, that was amended. Council amended that a number of years ago to say within a 12-month period.
Okay.
So it's not a calendar year. It used to be.
It's good that this question's been brought up, because it's interesting. I think that more and more people now have alarms, and I would wonder whether there's whether there's decreasing amounts of false alarms as people become accustomed to it. They can do it on their phone and figure out. It would be really interesting to have a little, not to add to the to-do list, but just to have a little report in response to this question, just for public information.
Fred?
And could I just, Mike has his hand up, okay.
Go ahead.
Could I just suggest that the $3,000 fee that we charge is fine, but the average cost of bringing a fire truck out to Mono from 3 of our fire departments is more like $4,500. And that's what it's costing us to have a fire truck come out when you get a false alarm, so maybe we should consider increasing that fee. Not today, Mr. Simpson, but maybe we should, on your enormous schedule of bylaws that you're looking at, maybe we should think of amending that fine.
Okay. Elaine, then Mike?
I'm just curious as to how this question would arise with one of our citizens. Do they have some information that led them to think that there were a lot of false alarms going on that we were, making everybody pay for? Like, I'm curious about that. And I guess too, we could ask all of our, and I don't know this, do we get a report of all false alarms that come from every fire service that we contract to?
Well, the Police Services Board used to get a report on this. I don't know how that's going to work now that we've amalgamated the 3 police services boards. But Mike and then Fred.
Your Worship, through to Deputy Mayor and Councillor Capes. So yes, we do receive fire billings, obviously, and they denote whether they're false alarms or not, and that is discussed between Treasury and bylaw enforcement as to whether it's a third offense. With respect to Councillor Davey, your comment, yeah, staff has identified this as a expenditure that would need to be reviewed, should be reviewed against the actual cost impact to the residents and the levy. And on the unfinished business list, there's a review of fees and revenue opportunities, and that may be better described as reimbursement for costs borne on the municipality. But between the treasurer, the clerk, and myself, we will probably have a report on this when we bring back the fees and charges bylaw. And at that time, I think, Councillor Davey, we would satisfy your, I'll say this so staff can write it down. We can satisfy your chart to have false alarms and perhaps go into more detail with respect to fire calls as well.
The other thing to be mindful of is that if an alarm is accidentally triggered, most monitoring companies do attempt to reach the homeowner or the designate of a homeowner to see whether or not there's been a mistake. Do we follow through with any effort to call off the fire trucks, as an example? Or
So,
once they start
once
rolling, we're gonna-
911 is triggered, it would, by the time you called them, they're probably rolling, and you're probably going to get the false alarm, whether it be volunteer or full-time staff, everybody's rolling, right? So, our alarm system here, for example, it has a three-pronged call-out. Starts with, I believe, Matt, then Kim, then me, or, I'm not sure of the order. But all three of us get called with respect to whether it's a false alarm or not, and whether we can attend or not to ward off. But a fire alarm is a pretty tough one to call off on the phone if you're not home. For a break and entry, you can probably work your way through that one, but like ours deciphers between fire and break and enter, and it depends on the level of the alarm. But yeah, there should be a point of contact, should be the first call, and I don't know of any alarm systems that are connected directly to the fire system, except we do have a fire alarm button that staff could push should they want fire immediately. But that has to be manually triggered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This sounds like an excellent subject for a newsletter contribution.
After we get the info.
Yeah, after we get the info. Any further discussion of this? Next question?
The second question starts with, roads have been consistently cleared, banks cut at intersections, and snow removed around signs marking travel on town roads much safer than provincial and county roads. Would the town provide a free workshop to the province and county?
And we thank John Candy for that question, or Jonathan Candy. I don't know, Matt, would you like to try and take that on in your spare time? I must say that after we made such a fuss about the MTO clearance at places like Camilla, they've made some effort to knock those banks back, at least until the next snowfall. So there's been, to my eyes, there's been some degree of improvement, but we have to keep on it, or else they go back to their bad habits. Any thoughts, Matt?
No, I'll agree that Town of Mono has the best operations staff and in the county and beyond. They do a great job. Everybody has their different challenges, different wind and different traffic volumes, and the county and the province does the best they can with the resources that they have, and given the weather and all the other different things. So there's lots of different factors that go into it, but everybody spends a lot of time training and to do their job as best they can, and that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Next question?
Okay, so question number 3 is, what are the current plans that the town has to make available more EV charging stations?
Well, Mike, go ahead.
So the town did apply for two level 2 two level 2 chargers at Monora and Mono Center. That was under the Charge On grant system that the Ministry of Transportation was providing. The town was unsuccessful with both of those grant applications. We looked into level 3, which is what I believe is a supercharger. And the grid at Mono Center would not sustain it at the current time. And Monora Park, we did not look into, but I would imagine there'd be a potential of a level 3. The cost to install a level 3 charger was excessive, in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, and I think that was 2021 prices. But as with any grant opportunity, the town will stay as best we can, stay apprised, and inform council when we would apply for such.
Elaine? And then,
Thank you, Mike. And yes, we do have them at the town hall. So they are there. Mono is not that big, and I'm sure that Ralph has more information about how you can charge there and get yourself anywhere. So I'll let Ralph, if he so chooses, to talk about that. But, you know, having one at Mono Community Center, it's only just down the road. So having that one there, I think is, at the town hall is great. And so whether there's a bigger demand inside of Mono for charging stations, I'm not sure, because people having electric vehicles, leaving their own homes, would leave with their vehicles charged. So I'm not sure why we would need more.
Ralph and then Melinda.
I have nothing to add to Mike. It's a source issue. I think you need 400 to 800 volts to have a level 3 charger. But it might be interesting to know, Mike, sorry, you gave us this number 2 years ago. How much utilization has there been for the chargers at our parking lot here?
Oh, if memory serves me, we were trying to put some of this on our website, but having said that, I will reach out to the county and get some updated numbers for 2024.
I'm thinking of the one in our parking lot.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the town only has, well, we have 2 in the parking lot. We only have 2. We only have 1 location for electric charging right now. The MTO grant that we did talk about to Councillor Capes, those were wayfinding sort of chargers en route. They were looking for tourist areas, Mono Cliffs being the tourist area, and the Highway 10 being the commuting corridor. So those what those grants were based on. And to be clear, level 2 charger is in the parking lot at Town Hall.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, the community centers would be the more logical location, in as much as people are going to a wedding and they're having some appreciable time there, as opposed to coming to Town Hall, and there's not a lot to do around here, let's put it that way, other than wait for the car to get charged. But Melinda?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is interesting that this question comes. There was a large discussion on the one of the unofficial town Facebook pages about this, and a comment was brought up that kind of, to me, made a lot of sense. That at this time, this costs a lot of money, and the whole infrastructure and so on. And so at this time, I think it behooves residents in our rural setting, if you're going to have an EV, that, I mean, it must have to modify the way you drive. If it's only got a 400 kilometer radius or 8 hours or whatever it is, then that's how much you drive your car. And it really should be the individual's responsibility to make sure that they can charge their car, as opposed to the town providing it. We don't provide gas or diesel stations. Those are commercial operations that, in fact, as I drive around North America, I find that more and more of these stations are part and parcel of gas stations and so on. That I'd be really disappointed if there was a move to try to do any of this without grants and actual extra funding for the town.
Does anyone know whether the new hotel has a station? I've heard they do as well. So that's helpful to know. It's probably a level 2, I would imagine. There was also an inference in that Facebook back and forth that there is a new kind of level 2 charger that is coming in March. The inference being that it's an improvement in technology.
Well, exactly. That's the problem. It's like, when are you too soon to get involved in this, that your whatever becomes obsolete, right? Don't we all just buy new phones because the one you got is obsolete? So will it be all of this technology, right? Got to be very careful on your timing.
Anything further? Next question.
So the next question is, my question to the mayor and council is, what are you doing to bring taxes down? The only thing I see with this is my taxes increasing. Can anyone use their imagination on how to reduce the spending and find opportunities?
How much did we chop out of the draft budget? $40 million?
Well, yeah, I mean, the draft budget always starts off as, you know, if money were no object, this is what we would spend money on. But it is an object. And, you know, we worked very hard to bring the increase down to an amount which none of us, I think, were thrilled with. And anyone having watched council in the last 2 meetings is aware that we've mandated staff to review all sources of revenue and fees to see whether or not they are appropriate, whether they're falling behind or at least competitive with surrounding municipalities. And, you know, we don't stop trying to find opportunities to save money. I mean, it's not that we like, you know, raising taxes. Far from it.
Yep. And I think our taxpayers should know that our biggest expenditure is roads. That's where we spend most of our money. And last year, our engineering firm did a thorough review of our road system and the level of service we're providing. And the bottom line was that if we want to maintain this level of service, we're actually not spending enough on roads. And that's where we get into a little bit of a tussle with our Director of Public Works. But that was a professional, technical engineering study. So if you want the roads just kept at the level they are now, unfortunately, it costs money, and we actually should spend more money on those roads.
Okay. Elaine and then Melinda. Elaine?
Thank you. Yes, and I know that we did all, staff and council included, fight hard to bring the tax rate, the tax increase down. But I do want to let everybody know that I have a chart, and Mono still has the lowest tax rate in Dufferin County. As far as I know, I haven't seen Melancthon, Amaranth, and Grand Valley, but of the others, we are still below in terms of the actual tax rate.
Melinda?
Just a couple of additions to both those councillors' Deputy Mayor and Councillor Cape's comments. They not only do we not have the numbers yet for Grand Valley, Melancthon, and Amaranth, but they increased their rates where we didn't over the last number of years. So if you average it out over what's been paid, you know, our large increase this year is because we've kept it down over many years. And the other little addition to the comment that the Deputy Mayor made, that not only are we deciding about what our level of service of roads is, that study was also mandated by the provincial government, right? That there's a timing on when these things need to be done, and we're following the legislation, and so we do have a level of service that we've always had, and we want to maintain it. But of course, there is the possibility to lower it if that's really truly what the residents want, which I think Mr. Marticelli is the only one so far to ask for that.
As I stated in the most recent newsletter, the notion that the property taxpayer is expected to sustain municipalities going forward is untenable. I mean, there's got to be a new arrangement with the provincial government and some realignment of who does what and who pays for what. But the idea that the municipal taxpayer is expected to come to the rescue each and every year through a property tax increase is just simply unsustainable. And I had hoped for a lively discussion about this at the recent all-candidate meetings, but unfortunately there was one individual who chose not to participate, so that debate, that discussion never occurred.
You're very right that it would be, that you're very right, except to say that in answer to Mr. Marticelli's question, or I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sure, sorry. That if we don't raise our municipal taxes to provide services, and we want money from the province to do it, then that just means your provincial portion of your taxes will go up. I mean, there is no other payer except us all. And I think that's what people really need to understand. The idea, as we say, but there was a grant for the EV charger. Ultimately, that money comes from us all deciding that EV chargers are important and let's distribute the money, which I gather is how we got the two we have, right? Was a grant back in the day, right? So there's only really one contributor to the pot, and it's you and me.
With the caveat that the province has far less regressive forms of taxation than the property tax. The property tax comes down hardest on seniors and people who, own a home but have no income. The sales tax is even more progressive than the property tax. And ultimately, income tax is the most progressive form of taxation. But the most regressive form of taxation, I would argue, is the property tax. Because there's no way around it. It's very, very unfair and very regressive. Any further thoughts?
Well, I think,
Go ahead.
just, we're talking about Mono's taxes, but if we look at our total tax bill, which includes the county, and I don't have the numbers, but I've been on county council for a few years now, and what irks me is the provincial responsibility for things like Ontario Works and healthcare and hospitals is increasingly, those costs are being shoved down to the county, at least the administrative burden of those are. So your county taxes are now picking up things that historically the province used to do, and we're now having to pay for that through our property taxes.
Well, one thing that came out in one of the all-candidate discussions was that once upon a time, and Les will correct me if I'm wrong, the province used to pay, was it 75% of the farm tax rebate to the municipality? And now it expects us to pay, basically take the discount 100% as opposed to sharing it with the province. And the argument is that we're essentially subsidizing people in cities for their food.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you are correct. At one point, the province did subsidize the 75% difference between the farm tax rate and the residential tax rate. It was part of our grants that we'd get from them. They would figure out an amount and we would get it.
Yeah. And I had forgotten all about that myself until it came up. One of the candidates mentioned that as a potential source of revenue for municipalities would be to go back to the future, I think was the term used. Any other questions?
That was all the questions online, Your Worship.
Okay. Do you have a question? Okay. Any questions online? I'm not seeing any. Oh. Elaine?
Just if you could indulge me, are there people in the gallery? Because of course, when you're sitting viewing council chambers online, you don't see the gallery. So are there citizens in the gallery?
We have one guest today.
Okay, thank you.
She can't see you.
Right. Okay, on to unfinished council business. Any comments or questions about the list? Elaine?
Yes, thank you. I will bring my motion. I gave notice of motion at the last meeting, and I will bring my motion to the next meeting regarding unfinished business, okay? Thank you.
Regarding what?
Elaine has a motion that will impact the unfinished business list, and she's going to bring it next meeting. Okay. Next item is bylaws correspondence, and in particular, the Monora Lawn Bowling Club. Fred, would you like to address this? Or Kim?
Morning, Council. Yes, the lease agreement with our lawn bowling club is now up for renewal. It expired a couple of years past, and the club has now, it's now applying for a grant to do some much-needed renovations to both their clubhouse and the lawn bowling greens. And in order to apply for the grant, they do need to have a up-to-date lease agreement. So that's kind of been the probe to get this to you. So what you have in front of you is a renewal lease agreement. I will let you know that the Lawn Bowling Club is very self-sufficient in looking after their clubhouse, their lawn bowling greens, and that's both maintenance-wise and monetarily. They've asked for a loan from the town once, at which time it was a 15-year loan, and they had it repaid to us, I believe, within 3 years. So, and that was to assist them when they were putting in the artificial turf. Other than that, the lawn bowlers are very, very self-sufficient. As I said, we do a little bit to help them maintenance-wise as far as turning the water on and off for them in the winter, dewinterizing and winterizing their lines. So, and just so that council is clear, the town is responsible for everything up to the fence that surrounds the lawn bowling greens. So in other words, we do have a water line that heads out that way. So if there was ever to be a burst in the line and it was on this side of the fence between the between Monora Pavilion and the clubhouse, then that burst would be the municipality's responsibility to fix. But if it was a leak on the inside of the fence, in other words, going into their clubhouse, that's their responsibility. They're also responsible for their own septic system.
Any questions? Linda, and then Ralph, and then Elaine.
Thanks for the report, Kim. And it was exciting when we had all of our clubs here and lawn bowling came, and to find out how enthusiastic they are and how long they've been doing it, and how they want a grant, and they were just asking for your expertise, not any money. But then when I read the agreement, I'm kind of a little interested in the fact that yes, they're self-sufficient in their building and so on, and just trying to compare apples to apples of our other clubs, they don't pay us any rent, $1 a year in rent, which is a very generous arrangement in that DBOT, we don't, we charge them a low rent, but we charge them rent, and I don't, well, pickleball doesn't have a building yet, but they want one. And so I just put that out there that we need to, eyes wide open, that's what we're doing, because that was not quite clear from their presentation. Is that at all up for discussion?
It depends whether council wants to discuss it. Ralph, and then Elaine.
I think we should definitely support this. If you remember that when all the clubs came here, they were not asking for any money, which was almost an exception. And in fact, basically we're giving them a patch of ground there. Yeah, it's very small, and we're not giving them any facilities. They've paid for all their own facilities, the clubhouse, etc. So it's a very self-sufficient club, and I think it's great to have them with us. So I very much support this sublease.
Thank you. Elaine?
Thank you, and thank you for comments that have been made so far, and thank you, Kim, for the report. That's great. The comments just going on made me go, we lease this land from CVC. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and we don't pay CVC anything for that lease.
No.
No, so then it, it's not our land, so then I'm not sure we would then charge an organization to lease that land from us. They cover the liability on the piece that they've got the fence around. I do also recall they came at budget time and they were very excited when I asked the question about would they like to be the second, because there already is one in existence, bowling club that had indoor facilities. So I want to know, is there, and maybe I just didn't see it when I read it, can we cancel this lease at any time on this land and wrap them into the feasibility study of an indoor recreation complex and providing for indoor lawn bowling for the inclement weather, especially this winter, that people have not been able to get out and do much with. Anyway, I just bring that to the forefront.
Kim, what's the opt-out provision?
There is a 12-month written opt-out condition, so either party can give 12 months written notice to opt out.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, because it would
Fred?
take us 12 months to build our new rec center, so.
Fred?
Just a question, I noticed on the lease with Credit Valley, it's obviously dated. I mean, they still refer to Mono as a township, but that wasn't my question. Our previous CAO, before he left, had been working on an idea of swapping some land with Credit Valley and the town of Mono, hockey lands for the Monora Park. And so that would obviously affect this lease. Is that idea dead, or is anybody still working on it?
Mike?
So Quentin and I have had some brief conversations, but I was yet to understand the reasoning behind that. And I was hoping maybe to get some discussions happening with our former CAO, who I'm still in contact with, to understand the basis of that. And Quentin and I were also looking to continue discussions on the matter. But it doesn't, nothing jumps out at me as to why.
Linda?
What struck me when that was brought up, and it was like, oh, that would kind of be an interesting idea, and having a look at it and so on, I guess, is this idea of, if you've got a long lease forever, like our new wonderful spa down in Toronto for the 99-year lease at Ontario Place, it seems like it's, or Hong Kong, it seems like it's such a far way away. But as it gets closer and closer, and you've invested, as you say, on this 140 square foot little patch, which is it's terrific. It's an awesome, don't get me wrong about wanting money. It's a terrific place. They've invested in it, and so it becomes more and more valuable to them. But then if the lease is up or coming in jeopardy, then, what does happen? Everybody just bulldozes it because now we have a new owner, right? So I think my understanding was that was what it was, just as a heads up that we're getting close to that lease, because it's not a given that a lease is going to be renewed, right? And also in that CVC was asking for lots of money for things in Monora, right? There were some ideas there with the pond and also there was, so just as a looking to the future, I think was my understanding.
Yeah, like I say, I haven't put a lot of thought into it, and yeah.
Well, I just observed that if we didn't have a private organization providing this service open to any resident, frankly, of Mono or Orangeville or anywhere, if we had to do this on our own, it would be quite expensive, require more staff, and a greater investment on our part. So I'm happy to see them continue with the arrangement as is. I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw authorizing the town of Mono to enter into a sublet lease agreement with the Monora Lawn Bowling Club, substantially in the form as attached as Schedule A to the bylaw, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Capes, and seconded by Councillor Mantalo. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of additional parking enforcement officers, and there is an attached report that explains the rationale for this. And I don't know whether Matt or Fred, which of you would like to address this?
I can start, but if Matt has anything else to add. So council will recall that I briefed them when talking about bylaw enforcement, that we had been experiencing problems with winter parking enforcement this year. And at that time, I suggested, in conversation with the Director of Public Works and his staff, that an option would be to appoint 2 Public Works staff the authority to issue parking tickets. And the reason is the winter parking restrictions are 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So if an operator is out there clearing snow at 4 or 5 a.m., it's very difficult to get a bylaw officer who's at home, doesn't know that this is coming, out before 6 a.m. This is designed to address that concern by allowing public works staff directly to issue tickets in this situation.
Okay. Matt, do you have anything to add to that? Maybe describe to us how big a problem this is, because I think residents need to know that your crew has a very difficult time maintaining the roads if people are parking on them during those hours.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Krillman. Obviously, it hasn't been much of an issue over the years with the amount of snow, but this year it has become a bit more of a challenge for staff to make its way around. They'll come up around a bend and have cars parked out on the road and can't even get the plow by. So it does become a challenge. It's not overly common. We try to educate residents. We understand that the challenges they're up against, sometimes getting home from work late and having to shovel their driveways and clean them out. It takes time. We understand. We're not out to try to ticket everybody on the first case scenario. In the past, we have tried to put notices on their car to inform them that they're not allowed and they're not permitted. So this is an extra layer. My hope is that it doesn't need to be utilized, but residents do need to know that they're not permitted to park on the roadway between 2 and 6 as it becomes a challenge for operations. So.
When I read this, I think it's an excellent idea, but what I was trying to think of it, 3 o'clock in the morning, when a snowplow operator comes across a parked car with a foot of snow on it, or 2 feet of snow on it, how do you actually physically ticket it? I mean, where do you put the ticket? Do you have to clean off his windshield and stick it under the wipers, or how do they do it?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Nix. Either give it to the person or put it in their car. Like this is a pretty common scenario in New Tecumseh. When I lived in New Tecumseh, they found a way to make sure that ticket was on the car. Whether it's on the, I don't know if Fred has anything else to add on this, but
We'll work through any challenges that we encounter based on our experience. We know certainly you might be able to clear a windshield, put it under the windshield wiper. Door handles in some vehicles might be a suitable place. We'll sort through the technicalities.
Thank you, Mayor. This was, I read the report and I thought, geez, why aren't we doing this already? But there was a couple of questions that I had. So we're appointing the supervisors, but it's actually so are you, like the logistics of actually getting out there before 6 a.m., it's you. It's not the driver that has the capability of issuing the ticket. It's you and Mike, right? Was it Mike? Was the other person?
thanks, Councillor Davey. It's actually Mike Marshall and Matt Noble. The operations.
Okay, so the operations fellow is already out there. Matt Noble would be out with the group.
It's more appropriate for supervisors, managers to be dealing with things. So this, when it becomes a problem or a reoccurring issue, the operators need to translate that and pass that information along to them so they can plan for it. They're not going to be out there every night between the hours of 2 and 6 a.m. looking for this. If it's a reoccurring issue, or if they know that the snow is coming in the forecast, it's something that they could look into and say, okay, this needs to be addressed.
Okay, except for the situation where, well, because you're not going to take it on the first time, but except for the situation where it's a small, narrower road, right down in our subdivision or whatever, and they actually now have to back up because they can't get by the car. Why? So what I thought was, how come we don't? Why? I know the supervisors to start with, but why can't we train the actual operators?
Well, I don't think we want the operators to be getting out of their plows and dealing with individuals that they're not, there's some training there, there's some appropriate back and forth. These plow operators are on the routes every night. We want them to stay in their truck. We have fleet vehicles that are more suited to be going out and dropping these, and they're the ones that would be issuing any letters for issues that are in the subdivision for plowing snow onto the town's right of way. We deal with these every year. People plowing their private driveways out onto the town's right of way. So those all come from supervisory staff, managers and whatnot. So it's just more appropriate that they're dealing with those people.
So those people go around in preparation for the season to notify people, not necessarily because there's a storm today coming and they're out doing it. It's educational work ahead of time.
It's a patrol element too. I think they're out checking on, down limbs and various other things. Elaine?
Thank you. Do we have a policy on towing? So if people are not supposed to be parking on the roadsides, do we tow?
So our parking bylaw does permit us to tow if a ticket has been issued, a parking ticket. We typically wouldn't tow in the middle of a snowstorm, though, or something like that, right? Because that was just further hampers the snow clearing operation. But we do have the authority to call in and have any vehicle towed, as long as it's ticketed. So by extending this authority to Public Works operational staff, based on their assessment of the situation, yeah, they have the authority to call in a tow truck if they've issued a ticket.
Okay, great. So people need to be educated. They need to know this, and they need to know that this is a serious, encumbersome thing for them to do. They have to park in appropriate places. So, thank you.
If there's no other discussion, I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to amend bylaw 2021-19, being a bylaw to appoint municipal law enforcement officers to enforce the town's parking bylaw, and that it be signed by the mayor and clerk, and for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover on that? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Capes. Any opposed? That motion is carried. We can get a few more things before we go in camera at 10. We have the Shelburne Library Agreement. Is there anyone who would like to address that?
So council sees this every year. It's strictly a one-year agreement or a one-year costing based on a previous agreement that the town has with the Shelburne Library Board. And as noted in my report, the cost has been pretty stable over the last number of years.
Okay. Ralph?
Could we have a reminder of what the formula is? We know what the final number is, 29,964. How do we arrive at that?
I could help with that question, Counselor. It's based on the Shelburne fire area. They figure the library and catchment area would I guess, match the fire area. So basically, household assessment and users.
So I presume it relates to the number of households in Monora that are using the library?
That's correct. I mean, there's also, it's a three number formula, so it's also averaged out with number of users themselves. So it's a three number formula that's of an average, so it also includes number of users as well that are using the library.
Can you tell us how many users there are from Monora?
Sorry, excuse me, Councillor Macno, can you turn your mic on?
Thank you, Councillor Davies. So nice of you to take care of me. My question is really, I'm trying to get a picture of the, how this formula works, and it's a percentage. It's based on 3 factors, somewhat like the fire boards are. So that's fine. But how many Mono residents make use of the Shelburne Fire Library?
I'd have to get back to you on that, Council.
Okay. Just wondering what the value is, what the cost is per resident, you know?
Elaine, just before you speak, Fred's got a point of order.
Yeah, before we go in camera, can someone from Public Works tell me why I have no power coming out of this plug and my computer says it's about to die because the battery is low? There's no power.
So in the transition between the public and in-camera portion, we'll get this problem solved. Elaine?
Yes, thank you. We had mentioned this before. We have a representative on that Shelburne Library Board that I don't believe we've seen. And we did talk about inviting, I believe Sharon Martin is still our representative on that library board. Is that true?
That's correct, I believe.
Well, it would have been nice to have her come to see us to report on the service that we're getting so that we could be very happy signing off on this contract. So anyway, that's just a thought.
Okay, I can maybe plug it into yours.
I think we can certainly extend an invitation to our former colleague. In the meantime, this is pretty much a status quo
So what are we turning on?
situation with the Shelburne Board.
Okay.
Les, would you describe it as a status quo?
Well, the Shelburne Library has always been very reasonable. Yes, I would call it pretty much a status quo. They have never gone beyond the actual cost of inflation.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, but just before we go in camera, I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw authorizing the town of Mono to enter into a service fee collection agreement with the Shelburne Public Library Board for 2025, substantially in the form as attached, as Schedule A to the bylaw, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor, and seconded by Councillor Capes. Any further discussion? Any opposed? And that motion is carried.
You have to turn your power bar on for me to get juice.
Oh, okay, let's go in camera now. So I have a motion that council move into a closed meeting pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended at 9:58 a.m. for Greenwood Aggregate, section 239, subsection 2, subsection F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. The second item to be discussed is Masters Creek subdivision, section 239, subsection 2, subsection E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Do I have a motion, mover on that? Councillor Capes moves, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposed to that motion? And that motion carries, and we go in camera. Thank you.
We're back live.
Thank you, and I have a motion that we rise from an in-camera session at 11:44 a.m., and that council accepts advice from the town solicitor and directs town staff and the town solicitor to proceed accordingly. Do I have a mover on that? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Elaine Capes. Any opposition? Seeing none, motion passes. And so that we can discuss Schedule A, I have a motion that we accept Schedule A to this agenda. Councillor Davey moves, seconded by Councillor Capes. Any opposition to that before we? Okay, that motion carries. Now, Schedule A. Are there any items on Schedule A that council wants to address? Ralph, and then Elaine.
I just lost my contact with the town website, but I think that it's in either number 6 or 7. It's the one that's on NVCA, Jonathan Scott.
6.
So I just think we should respond. Jonathan is the new chairperson, and a very, I think, a good guy. He's quite interested in communicating with all the
His mic is on.
Your mic.
Sorry, I'm sorry about that. Jonathan Scott has asked us if we would like to have him come here if we have any issues, and I think we should get back to him. I don't particularly have any issues, but I thought we should just bring this up at council as a whole. Thanks.
I guess one of the new issues was what was on our agenda last time about amalgamating and so on. No? Or no?
I think
Or is that
it's-
dead?
I think it's dead. I think it's dead, yeah. There was no reasons given for it, and there's been some communications. I'm not sure how much I can say here, but I know that there's been communications between the board and the involved municipality, and I haven't heard anything back about it, but I think that they were favorable.
Favorable to what?
That we didn't need to go ahead with the amalgamation. I don't know.
Okay, any other items on Schedule A? Elaine?
Yes, and I failed to send this to the clerk for advance notice, but I wanted to talk about 2, 3, 8, and 9.
Okay, quickly?
Sorry, I'll have to declare a conflict of interest if you're going to talk about item number 2.
Okay.
2.
Are you?
I just
Excuse
want to
me.
make a comment
Okay.
about what a great job they're doing.
And the Headwater Streams Committee gets money from the town, so clearly I have a pecuniary interest in the Headwater Streams.
You're free to declare.
Deputy Mayor Nix, would you mind putting that on the mic, the reason for your declaration, please?
I am a founding member of the Headwater Streams Committee, and the Headwater Streams Committee on occasion asks the town for money, so clearly there's a pecuniary interest I have in the Headwater Streams Committee. It's not technically a committee of the council. It stands on its own. I wasn't appointed to the committee. I'm a member in my own right. In fact, I'm a founding member, so I clearly should not be part of any discussion about the Headwater Streams Committee.
Hold on a minute, Fred. You've never done this before with the Streams Committee, and I know there's recent history.
I'm going to jump in here. You're free. Anyone is free to declare an interest at any time for any reason.
I've had my wrist slapped over this issue on another matter, so I'm playing it safe.
Okay. We'll let you know when we've finished. So let's deal with that item first, Elaine.
Okay, can I say so now?
Absolutely.
I just want to appreciate receiving the annual report. I just want to give accolades and say it's encouraging the number of members that are on this committee and dedicated to this work. I think there's an impressive list of items that perhaps would not have been contemplated or accomplished had this committee not been available and had the funds not been raised by the committee to actually support this work. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention. I think it's accomplished many great things, and so I wanted to give thanks for that. That's it.
Yeah, they do fantastic work. Any other comments on item 2?
No.
Okay. Deputy Mayor can rejoin us. Go ahead, Elaine, with your next item.
Just number 3, the Rosemont District Fire Board minutes, those are from May. And I just want to understand the time lapse from the meeting, from the minutes being approved and for them making it to our agenda. It seems a long time.
Do our representatives have any thoughts on that?
Well, as you know, Elaine, we only meet quarterly, and so so we met in May, and then we didn't meet again until, by the time there was, people being available and so on, it was late autumn when we met. So you're right, and now that we're in the late winter, I would expect, and we are having a meeting, I would expect that on this agenda would have been the November ones, but I think that it has to come, I don't think it's in our office, it has to come with when they come from the treasurer and clerk who writes these for the Rosemont, and so we need to bring that up at the next meeting because I concur.
So
Okay, thank you.
I received the draft November minutes, but because they're draft and not approved, I
They're
didn't
not
put them on the
approved,
agenda. So I'll put them on the agenda once they're approved. So with groups that meet 4 times a year, then it clearly takes months.
Well, exactly, and that's one of the, sitting on another fire board, that's one of the reasons why every time we finish our quarterly meeting, I say, let's set a date for another meeting, and everybody is, no, we only do this quarterly, but it certainly is a reason to potentially change that, in that the served municipalities need to be kept a little bit more up to date.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and perhaps we can add that to our next agenda in March to have a conversation about it. Excellent idea, thank you.
Can I make a suggestion? And that is, these boards, why not circulate the minutes to the members? And if there's 100% approval via circulation, then they're deemed to be approved, rather than waiting until the next meeting.
Absolutely. That's what we used to do with the Rosemont Fire Board.
Well, I don't know why it changed, but I became the chair. Shoot.
We'll reopen that. Okay, thank
So
you.
maybe we can pursue that
Number
with our
8.
boards.
Number 8. So I guess I would like to support the ask to ensure that people in Ontario, and in fact all of Canada, are never without service, because that is absolutely, I think, unsafe and unacceptable. So I would like to support that. I don't know if we can just make a motion that the town of Mono supports the call by North Bruce Peninsula for safe and accessible all-time internet service or whatever,
Fred?
phone service.
I'm Councillor Capes. I'm happy to propose a motion for council's consideration along the lines of the Council for the Town of Mono supports and endorses the municipality of Northern Bruce Peninsula's resolution calling on the province to mandate service providers develop a 48-hour maximum maintenance period for repairing cellular infrastructure.
Awesome. I would
Okay.
like to move that if I
Okay.
can.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Manctillo seconds. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you very much, all of you. And then number 9, this is interesting. This is a conversation that we've had in our home because somebody got stuck. Somebody ended up in the ditch the other night. I don't know what happened. But somebody got stuck at our house, and because their car did not have a towing hook, we were unable to tow it out, and so a big tow truck had to come. And the tow truck driver said it is a huge issue that newer cars that are all made out of plastic do not have a tow hookup, that they can't get the cars removed from where they are. And so I think, and he said the e-cars are another challenge because of the heavy batteries, but still, these are things we need to consider and I think it's about time we started telling the auto industry the things that they need to do. That's just one of them. But to
Well,
be
if I can add to the list of circulation, the Transport Canada should be on that list because they set the mandatory automotive standards. And if Transport Canada
Excellent.
says that you need a hook, you're going to have a hook. And I completely agree with you. My ATV gets stuck regularly, and I don't have a hook on my car that I can pull it out readily.
Oh, well,
I used to.
good.
But
So
not-
that, and I think they should adjust the safety, the lighting on the back of
It's the
vehicles
ATV,
for
the 4x4
signals. They should be a
ATV.
certain size. There's all kinds of things that they
Doesn't
need
have a
to
hook,
take
so
a
I
look
can't
at, but
connect
we'll
it to
just
the
stick with that
ATV
one.
pole. Okay, so, Mr. Clerk, do we have a rough and ready motion on this?
Well, I think we can probably come up with one on the fly, Your Worship. How about something along the lines of that Council for the Town of Mono supports and endorses the municipality of Northern Bruce Peninsula's resolution calling on the province to mandate that all new vehicles be equipped with tow hooks.
Also move.
And a seconder?
I'll second it, but I think it should be Transport Canada, not the,
Well, all of the below, plus Transport Canada, that was my point.
And I've made a note about if such a resolution is passed to include
Okay.
MTO.
So it's seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Any other items on Schedule A, members of council? Deputy Mayor?
yeah, you're probably the one to ask. Could you just take me through item number 4 in terms of, I just found it a bit confusing. The top lines are the amount of provincial offense revenues that was taken in Dufferin County for the last 3 quarters, right?
Yes.
1.4 million. Now, the next series of lines are the court expenses. I'm not quite sure I understand it, but the court expenses were, am I reading it right? Because the top line says total revenues, 1,051,384, and then the bottom line says total expenses, it gives the same amount of money. What were can you just tell me what that is, John? Do you understand that?
I haven't spent enough time with this particular report. Maybe Les can address it.
I couldn't understand it either.
Do you want to take it?
And, but then, so the bottom line is, even if,
So I had the same questions when I looked at this, Deputy Mayor Nix, and what they're doing is they're taking their net profit and putting it all in as the management fee. And, which of course, from a profit and loss balance sheet is kind of awkward, but if you were to take their total revenues, line A, and then add their, total expenses and costs, so total expenses, and then throw in the extra 2 lines in there, the additional costs and the additional revenue, it all works out to a loss. So that the $1 million actually is their actual costs.
and that leaves them with 441,000 to pay the municipalities. And so that's why if we get down to the bottom part of the chart, Mo got, my eyes are too good, $130,000 for the last 3 quarters.
Correct. So they brought in just short of 1.4 million in revenue. It cost them just over $1 million to operate
Okay.
the courts, leaving $441,000 in net revenue distributed amongst the municipalities. What I found curious, though, is that the municipalities get roughly their 30%, right? That's what the net profits were, based on their ticket volume. The province got 100% of their tickets. So they issued $8,500 in tickets, they got $8,500 in revenue. Where we issued a couple hundred, where we only got 30 cents on the dollar, they got 100 cents on the dollar. Now, they didn't issue a lot of volume, but I found that kind of curious, that they take, their full bite.
The other thing to remember is that of the monies collected, 20% over and above that is owing to the victim service sector. And those monies are advanced to the province before any money is advanced to the local participating municipalities. The province gets paid first. It's somewhat depressing that we started this whole thing off by paying Caledon roughly 25% of the 25% represented the administrative fees of the POA scheme going back to the year 2000, and now we're up to about 60% or greater of the
70%.
70% now, right? That represents the cost of running the system. At Roma, I sat with a number of people who were from municipalities where they are underwater in terms of the POA revenues versus expenses, to the point where the taxpayers are picking up the difference. So I thought we had it bad, but there's some out there that have it really, really bad, to the point where they want to hand the keys back to the province and say, you run it.
And to expand on that, Your Worship, even just in 2019, we were running at only 50% costs compared to revenue.
Right.
And like you say, we're now down to 30%, 70% costs
Yeah.
versus revenue. I do have those figures if council wants a comparison between 2024 and 5 years earlier, 2020, 2019.
Not to be harping, but this is directly attributable to the fact that most of the fines that are being collected that then reflect in the revenue, most of those fines have not been increased in over 30 years. So expenses have gone up, but the actual fine revenue has remained flat. And the only reason it has increased, quote unquote, is maybe more charges being laid.
And just as a final part of my question, I'd ask the clerk, if I paid a traffic ticket, do I have a pecuniary interest in this item?
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Don't make such light of it.
And of course, the stat answer, Deputy Mayor Nix, is the Integrity Commissioner is
It's up
happy
to
to
you.
answer that for you.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Fines are not always like, they're not generally meant to, I thought, in the grand scheme of costs versus fines, that they are supposed to cover each other.
You're right, except that fines are theoretically supposed to have a deterrent value. Okay?
No, you're right.
So the
and-
fine can't be so inconsequential that you break the law knowing that you aren't going to have a consequence.
Right, and we learned that firsthand as nice people back in COVID who put a preliminary fine on our parking when we added parking, and people just said, hey, yeah, the $50 was worth the visit to Mono Cliffs, thanks very much.
Yeah. Okay. We have a POA administration meeting coming up, so I think between Fred and myself, we can think of a few good questions for them.
Great.
Okay, any other items? And I think we have passed the motion with regard to Schedule A.
The motion's on the floor, Your Worship, has been moved and seconded.
Okay. Any opposition to acceptance of Schedule A? Seeing none, motion is carried. Reports of council and staff. Let's start with Les.
I don't have anything new to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Mayor Krillman. We're just cleaning up, operations is cleaning up subdivisions right now and hauling snow. So we're focusing on catch basins, high drainage flow areas, and sight lines and whatnot, so.
Past two trucks heading, I presume, to the dump this morning.
Yeah,
Coming in.
yes. We're fortunate to have that location to dispose of the snow at this point, so hopefully we continue to have a nice slow melt, and the guys are out opening up culverts, catch basins, and all that type of thing right now, and ask for
Careful
patience.
through eavesdrops in town, too. Kimberly?
The Recreation Department is in the same scenario as Public Works, just different facilities that we're looking after. We'll bring to your attention the roof at the Hockley property did not make it through the amount of snow that we've had, so we're dealing with some issues on the Hockley property with damages that have occurred because of the icicles and the roof. I'll have more to report on that after we know more about it, but we have put our insurance company on notification that there will be a claim coming in on that. Other thing I wanted to bring to council's attention is Friday is Valentine's Euchre at Monora Pavilion. This time we weren't able to go to Mono Center, so we're at Monora Pavilion. We still have a few spots open for it. Would love to have more people join us. For the small token of $25, you'll have a great evening out. So would love to have some more registrations for that. And last but not least, another event with one of the groups that we work very closely with is Big Brothers Big Sisters. And on March 21st, they are running a fundraiser which brings in about 30% of their funding for the year. It's called Bowl for Kids. They haven't had it in the past 5 years. They've brought it back. And they are a group that certainly support us with all of our events. And they're asking if the town of Mono would like to put in a team for the virtual Bowl for Kids on Friday, March 21st. So if you're interested, please let me know. And I will register a team from the town of Mono to support them.
It's like we bowl.
That's exactly what it is. So we'll pick an hour and we go to the Best Western, which is where they're holding it. And from what I understand, they have a number of Wii systems set up, and we will bowl on the Wii system. The Wii system is a what do you call it? Like a
gamer thing.
Virtual.
Yep.
It's a video
game.
Yeah, it's fun. I've done it. It's fun. We have one. The town of Mono has one. We can practice right here if you want.
Now, that would
can
be
practice.
fun.
We
That
can
would
practice.
be fun.
So yeah, let me know if you'd like to join in, because I think it will be a lot of fun. Okay.
So we're not knocking kids over.
To answer an earlier question from the meeting, the town did not issue any false fire alarm notices or fines in the last 12 months. A number of notices went out for first time, but there was no fines issued. So we had none that rose to multiple in 1 year.
All right. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Mike?
Your Worship, just a quick one. I attended the county's community engagement session, engagement, fostering meaningful conversations in Dufferin County. It was hosted by Tamarack Institute. It was a good day of one of the interesting things was going beyond the survey. We all do the survey. Andrew does a great job explaining the results, and there was some great opportunities on how to take it one step further. And as I continue to move ahead on this, I'll keep working with the county on their engagement process, and we'll stay in line with what they're doing as well.
Okay. Melinda?
Thanks for those staff reports. It's good. Lots for me, I've got some meetings coming up now, so there haven't been any since the last one, but yes, there's a Rosemont Fire Board meeting coming up soon, and CDRC. Last night was the first time that I was able to attend in person, because it's the first in-person meeting that the committee has ever had for the 236 building that is our permanent housing cooperative that is in Orangeville, but is on our border with the Starview neighborhood. And so if you'll recall, when that first came up as a project back in 2021 during COVID, there was a great deal of alarm and concern with our neighborhood on the other side of the fence, because previously there'd been some questionable uses of that facility. which now, number of years later, has been rejigged and is a beautiful facility with 27 units. They have 24 people living there. I met a couple of them in and out of the door, and they all seemed very happy and pleased. And but the big upshot of it that I wanted to mention was that SHIP, who is the company that the government-funded company that builds these and has them all over, and this was their first Dufferin outing, are keen to do more and looking for facilities and spots to expand in Dufferin going forward. So that's a positive. But that this community advisory committee that was formed out of our residents coming forward and saying, hey, what about us? And them being receptive, saying, yeah, what about you? Has really been very helpful, and going forward, they will be having a community advisory committee for all of their projects, which they'd never done before. And so the report last night was that all around everybody's happy, and that our Starview neighborhood is generally happy with the system or the new facility. And that we're going to be moving to the quarterly meetings, so it's not to the ball's not going to drop, that there still will be communication going forward. So it's a plus all around for the community.
Ralph?
Just one part of the last Board of Health meeting was interesting. It was a review of infectious diseases. And one of the diseases, most of the diseases are more or less, the incidence is about the same. But interestingly, TB has increased in this county, not huge, but the fact that it's here at all is really quite surprising. The biggest area is in latent TB. Latent TB means that you do not have a cough and sputum, et cetera, but your skin test changes, and you may develop full-blown TB later on. It's usually treated by antibiotics for 6 months or so. The other interesting thing that's happening is with respect to influenza. I haven't got good figures for here in Ontario, but in the States, they just announced that, I think it was the CDC announced, the poor CDC, what's going on down there, I can't believe it. That influenza has produced more hospitalizations and deaths in the last period than COVID ever did.
Thanks to anti-vaccines. The uptake for the vaccine this year was low.
Yeah. Fred?
And that was pre-Kennedy.
Yeah.
Kennedy. Kennedy's appointment.
Oh.
So it's just been a general decrease in uptake of vaccines.
That's why we've got kids with measles and dying, and diphtheria, and all across the board, infectious diseases. Going to be in the news, not the fake news, but the real news going forward.
Yeah, I had, and I sent a memo out to all of you on this Dufferin program, but just so the public knows, this has been in the works for a couple of years now, but the county has now got a grant, and they will be starting in 2026 an energy retrofit program for households in Dufferin County. The upgrades would include anything like insulation, high-efficiency heating systems, windows, and they would also include things like that would get a house ready for climate change, things like backflow valves or sump pumps. The key thing about this program is it's going to work by giving homeowners a loan. You can get a loan of up to $40,000 for 20 years at 2.5% interest. There will be 0% interest for low-income families. But the key is that the loan will be paid, will in effect become a local improvement charge, which Mono's had some experience with. And again, I advise staff that county staff will be talking to you about this. They have sent us a model bylaw, if you want to see it. Maybe our existing bylaw already works. But the beautiful aspect of this is that the loan attaches to the property. So as a homeowner, you can sell the house and move away. That local improvement charge will still appear on the tax bill for that property for the next 20 years. The program will start in 2026. It'll run for 3 years, It's being funded by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the total amount is $11.25 million, with $8.75 million of that being in recoverable loans. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities will provide $7.5 million, of which $5 million is for loans, and $2.5 million is for a grant to the county for both their administrative costs and an incentive program. I have no details on what incentives are being looked at, but the nice thing from the taxpayer's point of view is we're going to run this program at no cost, no increase to the Dufferin tax levy. The costs will all be covered. The county itself will be contributing $3.75 million to the loan portion of the program, and they'll, of course, get that back over the next 20 years. So I think this is quite exciting. It's not earth-shattering, but it does give us some money to get homes in better shape of terms of their energy efficiency and preparing for climate change. The only other thing I have to report is I had a Credit Valley board meeting on Friday, and most of it was in camera, so I can't tell you about it.
I'd like to say that I find this disappointing that it's a loan. I mean, I don't think it's going to stimulate very much. It should be replacing some of the grants that we had before, which dropped the price of things down, but now it's a loan for 2%, which
Yeah,
is
but can I just
is
say
reasonable.
that they also are going to have some money for incentives. I have no information on what that means, but my guess is, let's say a heat pump right now costs $7,000 installed. Maybe they're going to make it $6,500. I'm guessing at that. I don't know that, but there is an incentive part to this program.
Can I ask, and if the loan stays with the house, and it basically just makes your house worth $40,000 less, because it's a loan against it, and it'll show up, so you'll have to bring your price down if it's still there, no?
Well, I guess you're right, but the house will have some improvement to it, like say a heat pump or better insulation or better windows. I mean, it'll be more energy efficient, so presumably your cost of propane or natural gas will be lower.
Yeah, that's a big one, because really, yeah. But yeah.
That's all I have to report.
Okay, Elaine?
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Well done, Matt, for all the snow clearing and for clearing those basements and getting ready for the melt. We're gonna have to dig out all the snow around our house so our basement doesn't float away. Kim, great update, and I think I missed the update about the attendance at Winterfest.
Didn't get one.
Yeah.
Was it massive?
Yeah. Winterfest was extremely successful. I believe I reported on it
You did.
last meeting, yeah.
I might have missed.
Yeah, so we estimated anywhere from about 600 to 700 people in attendance at Winterfest this year. And yeah, Mother Nature was 100% on our side. It was a hugely successful event this year. And
Great, thank you.
okay.
Yeah, I forgot the numbers, but then I think I did mention that there is tourism dollars available for festivals, so we could
Right.
investigate some additional revenue to support our events that we run, which are amazing.
For next year.
And then I'm very interested in that community engagement with Tamarack. I work with Tamarack a lot. That's great. And I was happy to be able to participate in the Heritage Committee meeting last night. So that's good, and I look forward to the March Rosemont Fire Board meeting.
Okay.
Oh, there's one thing I did want to mention. There's an event coming up called Share the Bounty. It's a free community event. It is at Westminster Community Kitchen, February 28th from 5 until 8. And it is free food for sharing. It's called Share the Bounty. This is the second one they've done. They did a breakfast and now they're doing a dinner. And so that's February 28th from 5 till 8. If somebody needs to eat and they need to go to the community kitchen, it's open. And they're also looking for volunteers in case anybody has time to participate.
Okay, thank you. Notices of motion, any notices of motion? And we're expecting one from you, Elaine, next meeting, I gather?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Seeing none, I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Mono in session 4-2025, held on 25th of February 2025, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover on that? Councillor Manctilo moves, seconded by Councillor Capes. Any opposition? Seeing none, the motion passes. And finally, I have a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 19 minutes past 12. Moved by Councillor Davies, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposition? Motion is adjourned.
Thank you.